So there are a few things that will be helpful to review from the first section about numbers and algebra that we did in year 1. I noticed in your homework that you have something written like this. And I just want to remind you what that means. If you see a negative exponent, all that means is that you should actually think of these units as a fraction with the s on the bottom. So another way of expressing this is m over s, which you should know means meters per second. So if you ever see a unit written with a negative 1 like that, just think of that unit expressed as a fraction. That's all that means. So in the first question on your homework, when it says that the speed of sound is given in meters per second, and it's asking you to calculate how much it travels in an hour, you should be able to calculate that just using some simple operations, which I'm not going to give away. It does then ask you about significant figures. So we want to review the rules for significant figures, which are here. We went over these rules last year. All non-zero digits are significant. Any zero that appears between two non-zeros is significant. This third one is the one that most people usually forget, and it's that zeros to the left of the first non-zero digit are not significant. So if it says 0.0000007, only that 7 is significant. Okay, so only all the zeros before the first non-zero are not significant. And then the last one, any zero that you place after a number to the right of the decimal is going to be significant. So if it's asking you to round to 2 significant figures or 3 significant figures, just obey these rules in the question because you're not going to get full credit on the IB unless you've done your significant figures and rounding correctly. Right? And then it's asking you to express your answer in this form, which just means scientific notation, if you're familiar with scientific notation, or if you're checking back in your notes from last year, we actually call this standard form, not scientific notation. So the standard form of a number is another way of saying scientific notation. The only rules for scientific notation are that the number A has to be between 1 and 10, including 1 but not including 10. And the digit K has to be an integer. So this is just -1, -2, -3, -4, or +1, +2, +3, +4, or even 0. The other thing that's worth reviewing for your homework is, the rules for how you do operations with scientific notation. So if you have something like 2 times 10 to the 5th power and 3.5 maybe times 10 to the -2nd power, I'm just making these numbers up off the top of my head. If you have to multiply with these or divide with them, you should know that there are shortcuts so you don't have to take out your calculator and do this whole operation. If you have to multiply these two things together, like this, you're going to take out your calculator and multiply the A digit times the other A digit. But then you're just manually going to add the K value to the other K value. Because multiplication with exponents means you add the 2 exponents together. So you're going to do 2 times 3.5, which is going to give you 7. And then you're going to add the 2 exponents together, which is going to give you to the 3rd power. Just make sure that your final answer is still in scientific notation so that A value is still between 1 and 10. If you have to divide these two, like 2 times 10 to the 5th power divided by 3.5 times 10 to the -2nd power, you're going to divide the digits just like normal. And I'm not going to spend time taking out the calculator to do that now, so you can take out a calculator and do that. Just know that you now subtract the exponents. The top exponent minus the bottom. So 5 minus the -2, which will be 10 to the 7th power. And then just again, check if your final answer is still in scientific notation, and adjust it if it's not. And then the last thing to review are some number sets. So you can either consult your notes from last year, use Google, or write these down from this video. This stands for the natural numbers. The natural numbers we think of as the ones we can count on our hands, including 0. So it's just whole numbers and it's just positive numbers. Okay? Then we have the set Z, which is integers. Write that one down. So the set Z stands for integers. Integers are like natural numbers, only whole, so no decimals, no fractions, but they do include the negatives, and so on. And we've got two more that are important to review. We've got Q. Q are rational numbers. Rational numbers are anything that can be expressed as a fraction of two integers. So 1/2 is rational. 0.25 is rational because you can express it as 1/4, right? 0 is rational because you can express it as 0 divided by anything. Let's think of something that's a rational number can also be negative. It's -4, over 5 is still an integer being compared to another integer. Something that is not rational, which we would express like this, Q with a little prime sign above it. So something that is not rational is called irrational. And these are things like pi, the square root of 2, the square root of 5, the square root of 7, any square root that doesn't come out to a whole number. And pi is another example. These are decimals that don't repeat and they never end. Nobody knows all of the digits of these numbers. And then this one, which you're probably pretty familiar with, is just the real numbers. And pretty much everything we're going to analyze is a real number. Only thing that's not real would be this, because you know that that's I, and I is an imaginary number. So that pretty much sums up the review that you're going to need to know for this homework assignment. And we will go out throughout the year. We're going to go back and review more things like this to complete our practice IB questions. So you don't need to necessarily have all this stuff rewritten down in your notes, but I hope that helps you get your homework done.